you should be a monster. You know, because everyone says, well, you should be harmless, virtuous. You shouldn't do anyone any harm. You should sheath your competitive instinct. You shouldn't try to win. You know, you don't want to be too aggressive. You don't want to be too assertive. You want to take a back seat and all of that. Wrong.
There you go.
You should be a monster, an absolute monster, and then you should learn how to control it.
Boy, beast.
You know, it should go without saying that life definitely has its share of hardships. You may even say categorically that much of your life is nothing but a pit hole of suffering. However, what if you try not to make it any worse than it already is? Is whatever you are facing a lot of suffering? For example, a person who has cancer would be suffering a lot. However, they can't really claim that if only they had done something differently, they wouldn't have the disease. You could still question yourself if something is actually required while people, or you yourself, are tormenting you. Was this necessary to be added to my life's woes? We, humans, get discouraged by that. So even if you are simply experiencing inevitable sorrow rather than self-inflicted unhappiness, perhaps you might be able to manage that. And as you well know, you could keep on living. You might be able to handle it without developing a permanently cold nature. Thus, indeed life is a pit hole of suffering and might not have a higher purpose. This could feel true especially when you're feeling blue, yet it still raises the question of how great you could make of something if you didn't want to make it worse. It might be bad, but at least it's not hell, right? That would be the worst case scenario in the worst case scenario of all imaginable universes. Take another example. Your mother died. That's definitely tragic. But imagine if, while your mother is lying on her deathbed, your family gets into a clash, something you can't get out of. This is how a tragedy is different from hell. A tragedy over tragedy over tragedy that you can't move on from. The first situation could be bearable after time passes, and could even bring you closer to your sibling. However, no one can tolerate the second scenario. Mostly tragedy brings out the worst in people. One is under a lot of stress and lacks the energy to suppress bitter feelings. So a time comes when they can't hold it in any longer and throw it all out. You should always be ready to face tragedy since it will happen to you one day or another, and you should be the one to handle it. Who knows, you might discover that it isn't the kind of thing that would make you lose faith in your existence. You are the only one who can overcome that hindrance in your plans. And then you'll see that the challenge wasn't just a challenge, but a hidden opportunity as well. It might be difficult to retrieve a silver lining from certain dark clouds. Perhaps an illustration of this is if one's mother passes away. But even this time presents a chance for development. You could remember that they want this for you if they loved you. Moreover, if you're the one who can be present and helpful during their last minutes rather than trembling and crying in another room, you could help them leave in peace. Thus, if you are in such a situation, you have to be strong. You have to be brave, not just for them, but for yourself too. So you can muster the power to tolerate the tragedy and move on when it's time to do so. If nothing else, you can at least make this your goal. Make your goal to not be wavered by everything and anything that life throws at you. No matter what suffering and tragedy you are surrounded with, become a monster and bear it without falling down. Even if you lose someone, if you were really important to them, they would want you to keep living on. They would definitely want you to collapse and stop your life, being stuck in that one moment of misery and loss. So even if you feel selfish or cruel, that is what life is. You need to keep living. That is the right thing to do, to become the monster who survives anyway. Take another example. No matter what age you are, you still might consider your parents to be the God figure in your life. Thus, it is evident that you might care more about what they think of you than your friends, relatives, their friends, etc. No matter what or where you are, you still continue to consider them as an archetype. And you could believe that one day, stopping to care about what your parents think of you is something bad. It might be, yet you will be helpful to them when they're older. And that kind of compassion is far better. It seems as though you would be independent yet strong enough to be the one who can take things ahead when the authority within the family shifts from them to you. That's the way things usually are. You realize that when your plans fail, you feel surrounded by chaos, like you are sicked up by hell. This hell therefore constantly exists and is present beneath you, beneath everything. You thus have to be capable of functioning in every situation. And when you work here, that's when you pull others out of their hell. When you have to relearn the principles that orient people permanently when you're mired in confusion and have no idea what is going on. This is when you realize what your hell is and what is it for others. You are stranded. You know that misery is a reality present in the world. You're not naive. But you might be the prey for the world's evil. Well, you need major luck to function under such presumptions. You just don't bounce back from that. You remain in your deep pit of sorrow. You, being a mere human, keep acting in such a manner. You must go deeper into it, I suppose. You assume that evil is in the air. I had better be the kind of person who can accept it and handle it. However, you must change yourself and become a monster under these circumstances. This way, the world won't be able to hurt you. The evil will stay back. The only thing a monster doesn't meddle with is another monster, right? You might be thinking, no, that's selfish and cruel. Why would I want to change myself into a monster? But it's as though you have no option. Either you become prey with no power or you are a monster with things under control. These are the only two possibilities in your life. There is no weak or powerful non-monster alternative. And by being powerful, you completely don't have to be an oppressive hunter straight out. That is not completely what your goal should be. By power, I mean funeral strength. The monster with nothing but a survival instinct. This is what a true monster is like. Hence, in times of chaos, this is what you have to become. The part of you that you have to discover again.
All you have to do is ask yourself, you'll come up with a list instantly of 100 stupid things that you're doing that you know you could stop doing. Some of them maybe you don't know you could stop doing. It's like, well, fine, leave those alone for now. But there's a bunch of things you perfectly know well that you could stop doing that would improve your life. Everything that makes you anxious or everything that makes you upset is the same as every other thing that's ever made you upset.